Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Wherever you live, you may have noticed there are supply chain issues, there are shortages in the store, and it's never too late to start adding to your prepper pantry stockpile. There are many foods that can last for 30 years and even longer, and I'm making it a priority to add another set of those foods into my prepper pantry. If you haven't added anything to a food storage, you want to start with simple, ready to eat, open and heat up, easy to prepare pantry type food items. You don't need a global pandemic or an SHTF situation. Maybe you run out of money, maybe your power goes out, your water stops running. You just run out of time because your days are complicated. So being able to reach into your pantry and make a quick meal for your family can really save the day. So what are some of the longest lasting foods, the ones that I'm adding a little bit more of to my long-term food storage? The first one is honey, and I actually found this great big jar of locally grown raw honey was only $14. The closer you can get to honey that is raw, natural, the closer to what's produced in your area should be what you look for. And you want to try to store it into a glass container rather than plastic. If you buy it in a plastic container, you may want to pour it into a glass container and then put the lid on. As long as you store your foods in a cool, dark, dry environment, foods like honey can last nearly forever. Next, I bought some rice. If you have the money to buy a big bag of rice, go ahead and do it, but you can buy it 1 pound at a time. Storing foods for long term is simple. You can get something as simple as an empty pop soda juice bottle, a plastic container that's only held food. Look on the bottom, it should say PET or PETE, and it should feel like it's very sturdy. And as long as you get it completely clean and allow it to dry completely, absolutely make sure that you let it dry far longer than you think so that you don't add any moisture into your food which could cause it to spoil. Then you can simply funnel the food in. The larger the food, the wider the mouth container you may want to use because you don't want it to be too hard to get it out later. Some containers may have stored food that had strong odors, and it may be nearly impossible to get those smells out, so you want to make sure that you put the lid on, leave it for a few days, open and take a whiff, and see if it still smells like root beer, Dr. Pepper, pickles. You don't want to add unexpected flavors into your food. These kind of containers are also great to just fill them up with water and put them away with your stockpile. After rice, get beans. There's all kinds of beans that you can buy at the store, usually for $1 a pound, but I notice they're getting higher and higher. You don't have to buy a huge bag if you don't have a lot of money. You can pick them up 1 package at a time. I like to have a different variety of not only pinto beans, I have red beans, white beans, all kinds of different beans. And then lentils and split peas are also in that same category, but they cook faster, they have different flavors, and they're still loaded with protein and easy to add into a lot of different recipes. So go ahead and pick them up 1 bag at a time, but then you need to store them into an airtight container. So it would be the same as the rice. You could pour them into a clean bottle, add them into a clean canning jar. I like to buy the Classico pasta sauces because a regular canning lid fits right on those. And so then you don't have to worry if the original lid smells still like pasta sauce. But that may not matter if you plan to use those ingredients with a tomato-based sauce. Barley is a nice grain to add for variety into your prepper pantry food storage, but just like all the other foods, you need to store it into an airtight container. Don't leave it into a paper or cardboard package. You need to reseal it so that it's airtight. The next food is oatmeal, and even if you don't have a way to cook oatmeal, you can make overnight oats. You can pour milk or water, other liquids over it, and then allow it to soak up, and it can actually make a nice overnight oats. You can add all kinds of fruits or nuts or different seasonings and spices. It's a nice way to have variety with food that can last for a very long time. Pasta lasts nearly forever, but not egg noodles because they have egg in them. But all of the different shapes of pasta, noodles, and macaroni are really nice. The different shapes can add interest and variety, but they take up so much more space if they're the cutesy shapes, because this is only a half of a box. I can take a big box of the long straight like fettuccine, spaghetti, linguine, break them in half and put them in a jar, and the whole box will fit in a jar, whereas I will need 2 jars for the cute, nice, fun shapes. Having enough containers and enough pantry space is an issue. Maybe go with just the ordinary pasta, just so that you can have fewer containers, and then you actually end up with more food in a smaller space. One of the tips for your dried foods is before you package them away, you may want to put them in the freezer for a few days to kill off any of the little critters that naturally occur in these foods. Then pull them out and let them come back to room temperature for several days, because if you don't give them time to warm back up, you can actually end up causing condensation from being in a frozen environment, and it can actually cause your food to spoil. So don't package it away in your new airtight containers until you're positive that it's warmed back up and it's at room temperature. If you want to store your foods into a plastic container or a clean jar, make sure that the jar is completely clean and completely dry. And then never recycle something like a milk jug, because number one, they are not sturdy, and number two, it's nearly impossible to remove all the milk solids. It's also, I'm suspect of orange juice type containers too, so I just don't use those because I can't guarantee that I've gotten them clean enough to not be adding any bacteria into my foods. Then you can just put on the lid and it'll be fine. Or you can add an oxygen absorber, makes it more airtight. With some of the glass jars, you can use a food saver with a vacuum seal attachment. There are many different ways to store food, and none of them are very complicated. And do the best you can. That's the whole point. You don't have to have fancy gadgets, special containers, special items to suck out the air. If all you have is a clean, dry container and you can fill it up with your dried food and put on the lid, that's going to help far more than if you don't do that. It's also going to be a blessing to you down the road when you might need to have that food on hand. The better you store food, the longer it lasts, but do the best that you can with what you have to work with. You can always go back later and do it better if you have that available to you at a later time. These are the foods that I'm adding to my prepper pantry right now, the longest lasting foods, so that I have plenty of variety. Fill your prepper pantry so that you have as much food on hand as possible. Nobody knows what the future holds, but we know that it does look like we are heading into some complicated times. And if we have the basics to take care of our families and ourselves, then we have the ability to make the best of whatever comes our way. We may not like it, but we can get through it. If you enjoyed my video, I hope you'll share it with someone else you think might like it. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.